Right. In our next part 2, we're going to actually get away from the basic functionality we have here. We're going to actually switch this application to start actually working with data, right? So one thing I'm going to have to do then is install my NuGet package in order to work with our web API. Install package, and the exact same one we've used before, our web API client. All right, good. Now, I'm also going to want to keep my code organized pretty much the same way that we did earlier. So I'm going to make a couple more folders. I'm going to add one called data. Now, in many tutorials, this is often referred to as services instead of data, but to be consistent with how we've been doing it, I'm going to stick with the same name. Besides, it saves me having to worry about changing as many namespaces. Utilities. Okay, I think that's all I really need. So it's actually interesting to see how much we can actually just reuse the code from our earlier work, even though we're switching to the model view model design pattern. So I can come to models, I can right click. By the way, I've already downloaded the posted sample or example from earlier this term. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. That's what I get for talking and coding at the same time. We're going to add existing item. So I do have downloaded here our client from earlier. So come into models, grab these classes, add existing items here. For our repositories and utilities. Add existing item. Now, some of this code, of course, will have to be somewhat modified. Let me just close everything else for a second. And I'm going to get all these open. Okay. One of the things you'll notice is everything has been changed everywhere to internal, right? Well, that's not so good. We want to make them public. So I'm going to do Control H, replace internal with public. Okay. Ensure case sensitivity and all open documents. There we go. So that fixed up that issue. A couple other things I want to deal with as well. If we come back to Jeeves for a second, look at that. We don't have any need for that. Not suitable for the kind of project we're doing, because that was a UWP, right? Now we're in Maui, and take out the content dialog stuff, because then that is UWP specific as well. Okay, so that fixes up most of the issues we have with our different code that we just imported. But a couple of things we want to think about going forward is, again, continuing with the separation of concerns. We're going to want to actually be able to inject our repositories into the actual view models as we require them, right? We're going to add a couple more lines here in the Maui program to add to our services the doctor repository and the patient repository. Now we'll have to add the using here for the data namespace so we can find both of them. Excellent. By the way, also just modified the repositories to be consistent with using dependency injection, so that instead of newing up the HTTP client itself, we're injecting it in to the classes as we go. Okay, all right. So next thing I'm going to do, coming to the View Models folder, there's some common properties that we're going to find handy in pretty much all of our view models. So I'm going to create a base view model class itself. We're going to add that here. Make sure, of course, it's a partial class, and it itself will inherit from observable object, right? We're going to add a couple properties here. We're going to have a Boolean about is busy, okay? And That way we can use that for things like our little busy indicators on forms if we're waiting for data to come down and so on. Another common thing that we'll often take advantage of, make good use of, is a title property. So we're going to add that here as an observable property as well, so that we can provide that in code easily to all of our different forms and so on. Okay, or views, I should say. All right, let me come back here. Sorry, close something there I didn't mean to. I wasn't quite done yet with our main view model. Now it can just inherit from our base view model. And of course, it gets the observable object from the base view model itself. Okay. Now, there's some stuff here I definitely don't need anymore. All this code we just added, we were so proud of it, I know, for the purpose of the demonstration. I don't need any of that anymore. In fact, even this name I won't need anymore. So we're starting pretty empty in here. What am I going to need, though? Well, I need an observable property for a list of patients, right? That's something I'm going to have, so I have to add the using here for the namespace for our models. And then in the constructor, we're going to use a bit of dependency injection here to get the patient repository. Now that we've added it to the dependency injection, remember we did that a few minutes ago here by adding it as a singleton. We can now insert it here, right? Oh, I need the, patient repository. I need that as well. There we go. All right. So that's good. Now we're all set. We have our repository injected. We have our list of patients. And I'm setting the title, which of course comes from base view model, to patient roster or patient list, whatever you prefer. Okay. Now we're going to need a command, right, so that we can go and get the patient list. So that will be annotated as a relay command. And the code is very much the same as what we've used in the past as well. Add some usings here for the API exception. Good old system.text as well. And that should be good. Okay. All right, now let's just come to the XAML of the main page, right? We're going to do some work here. Pretty much most of this code inside the scroll viewer is going to go. We don't need that anymore. I'll leave the scroll viewer there for now. And we will need the model namespace as well. So I'll just use the short letter M for our models namespace. I'm going to provide the title as well and bind it to our title property, the coming from our base ViewModel class that we set inside the ViewModel for this page itself. Oh, I just noticed another thing I missed in terms of updating the code. The existing code that we imported, the namespace of the classes themselves is still the old medical office WebApi client. Well, we don't want that, right? So I need to do a search and replace for that namespace as well. Bit of a tip here, having the dot at the end is a bit of a safety thing here. It helps me make sure I'm just selecting the right code. I'm going to do it throughout the entire project to get all those old namespaces replaced. 18 of them, there you go. See? Hard to believe I actually missed that, but I eventually caught it. Okay. So next we'll just replace the actual scroll viewer with a new version of the code. Just adding a toolbar at the top for our refresh. Notice the binding of the command is set to our show patients command. And we can take advantage of the ability to enable and disable the button by using our is not busy, right? Okay. And then down here we have our similar arrangement to what we've done in the past. Our activity indicator is again bound to is busy, right? So if it's busy, we want to show the activity indicator where the item source for the list view is our patients, and we're binding each data template to a patient, showing the chosen information by setting the binding properties. And that's basically it. So let's give this a try finally. Almost there. Okay, so we're up and running. Now at this point though, I have to click my refresh button in order to actually get the data coming from our web API. There we go. We have lots and lots of data, lots of patients to choose from, etc. But maybe that's one last thing we'll do in this part of the demo is why should I have to wait, right? If I'm opening the application, why doesn't it go and get the data right away? Well, that's something that we can address, right? We don't want to wait for the button to be clicked, okay? Now, the thing is, what we've used in the past is the OnAppearing event, right? In the actual code behind page. And that's how we would tell it to, okay, tell it it's time to go get the data, right? Well, remember, we're trying to avoid, okay, putting code in the code behind if we possibly can. Now, you'll actually see in some tutorials that they still go ahead and put a little bit of code like that in the code behind, right? And as far as a sin goes, it's not really a huge sin, right? But we can get around that by defining, using our MVVM approach, a behavior. A behavior can associate a built-in event of a page with the command of the ViewModel, right? Okay. So we might have mentioned earlier that a ViewModel can use either commands or behaviors. So to simplify adding behaviors, we're going to do a little bit of work here, right? We're going to add another NuGet package, CommunityToolkit.Maui. Okay, but we want a particular version. So maybe I'll take advantage this time of the actual NuGet package manager. I will browse for CommunityToolkit.Maui. Okay, but in order to make sure that it's compatible with our .NET 7 that we're using here, I have to go back actually. You'd think 7 would work, but no, 6.1, right? Notice this works with .NET 7, mentions it down here, right? So that's the one we actually want. So I'll install that version. Thank you, apply, I accept. Okay, and right away it comes up with a bit of a help file. What we have to do is, I'll even copy this right up here, we have to chain, right, this in the right order in our Maui program. So after use Maui app, we call use Maui Community Toolkit before we go on to the next step. Okay, so that should take care of that. Now that we have that toolkit in place, we can go back to our main view model and we can add a command, right? So coming to our main view model once more. We're going to add a relay command, the asynchronous task of appearing. And that is where I'm going to now call show patients, right? Now to add namespace for our toolkit on the content page, that's one thing I have to do. So if I go back to the actual main page itself, I'll use MCT for the Maui Community Toolkit, okay, as a namespace. And then we can add the behavior, right? So that can go right up at the top here, content page. Maybe I'll put some white space there. Behaviors. It's an event to command behavior. So the command, we're binding it to our appearing command, right? Remember, in the actual view model, we just call it appearing, so the word command is added to the end. And the event name is appearing. So the event belongs to the actual page, but we're going to associate it this way with the command in our view model named appearing. Okay, so one last test in this part. And so we shouldn't have to wait till we click the button. We should immediately refresh the data as soon as it opens up. Almost there. And there we go. So we have our busy indicator right away because we're retrieving the data from the Web API, and I didn't have to wait and click the button first. So there we go. That finishes this part of our demo. Hope you had as much fun as I did.